Caleb Williams, if you mess him up, it's your fault.
It's on you.
JJ McCarthy, if you get him to become the franchise QB, they get the credit. Everybody gets raises.
Did you watch Love is Blind at all?
I did watch Love is Blind. I love Love is Blind.
You know when AD on this season said, "I'm such a fix-a-hoe"?
Yes.
I was like, every NFL GM is like her. Like, they're all just a bunch of fix-a-hoes.
Yo, I'm Robert Griffin III, and welcome to RG3 and The Ones, a Wave Sports and Entertainment original presented by PrizePicks. On this show, we're talking to the ones that don't just know the game, but also study it. And hopefully you can take one thing that you learned today on this show, apply it to your own life, and become the one in that bad boy as well. I'm the one who apparently pissed off Bears GM Ryan Poles, but we'll get into all that a little bit later. What I need you guys to do right now is hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube page so we can keep this bad boy going. We can't do it without you. And make sure you're ready for our episodes that are going to drop every single Thursday. Follow us on social media at RG3 and The Ones because we'll be posting daily clips from the last week's episode to get you primed and ready for the new one that's about to come out. Also, you can hear us and listen to us and get us wherever you get your podcasts as well. Well, coming up on this episode, I'm talking to the one who is an amazing journalist, started out as an investigative reporter, basically, and now she's one of the top in the business at NFL breaking down football teams. I'm talking about the one and only Mina Kimes. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Nah, this is I've really been looking forward to having this conversation with you, especially with a lot of the things that are going on in the NFL right now. And I think that your analytical approach to everything always adds positive and great insight. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, this is fun. We've been on NFL Live together.
Yep.
But we've never podcasted together. So this is a good first.
No, this is it's amazing to have you on and talking about some of those things. Before we get to that, just how has life changed for you since being a new mother and having Nino to take care of while you're also taking care of your NFL responsibilities?
Yeah, I let you know right before we started taping, I was saying if my volume doesn't get too high, it's because Nino is sleeping. He's sleeping well, which I feel like is, you know, this with kids and it's still 14 months, you're kind of out of the weeds, but I didn't know that like so much of my life would be about logistics and sleep. And that's a big, but it's great. I mean, it's great now that he's actually sleeping.
One thing me and my wife always talk about is there's a certain aspect of like trying to tiptoe around certain things because you don't want to be too loud. But at the same time, if you teach them early to sleep through some of the banging or whatever's going on, it'll help you in the long run. So that would be my advice there is sometimes kids can sleep through anything.
You know what? It's like quarterback development. You want to see them in a muddy pocket. You want to see them with pressure. You don't want to see them only playing behind a perfect offensive line. And it's something I think that has to be factored into draft evaluation too.
Listen, the way you just connected those dots was phenomenal. Okay. So let's get to the football. And you bring up, wanting to see guys in a muddy pocket or whatever it may be. But right now it does kind of feel like the NFL is trying to make things as easy as possible for the offense. So let's get right into the hip drop tackle ban. Just for you, how are defenders, in your mind, supposed to approach playing defense when a lot of the physicality and some of the natural things that happen in the game are being taken out?
Well, I think what you just said is really important because I think part of the outcry in response to the banning of the swivel hip drop tackle, I think I got it, or hip drop swivel tackle, whatever. It's not an isolated thing, right? Like Correct. If it was just this one rule, I think people would be a lot more measured in response, but it's the culmination of so many rules that have made defense harder to play. And I think that's how you got to this moment where many players are coming out and expressing frustration. Even offensive guys have been a little bit sympathetic. Not all of them, though. Not all of them. but so I get that. I think I'm holding back judgment a little bit until I see how it's actually legislated, because so often you've seen this, obviously, there's this like crazy outcry in the preseason. It's called so much. And then by week 4, it's like once a week at most. And
there you go.
So that's kind of how I feel about it, right? Like if I want to see how it's called. If they do call it more than once a weekend, and it's coming up in pivotal moments in big games, and NFL players are legitimately defenders are having trouble making that adjustment, then I think it's concerning. I just kind of have to see it in practice first.
No, I completely understand that approach and the thought process. I know they're saying right now, or at least it's been put out there, that it's going to be a 15-yard penalty if they call it. There's potential for more fines. And I think all those things compounded, right? We've already eliminated the horse collar tackle of pulling them back. It's to the point now where even if you put your hand there, they're going to call it or think about calling it. And we talk about player safety. We talk about how much we're putting on the referees to make the games right and make the right decisions. But when you throw things like this out there, I feel like it's making their job harder.
Yeah.
And the outcry against the refs when they get one of these wrong, because inevitably they're going to in a crucial moment, it's only going to continue to increase.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point about the refs and how much more difficult it makes their job, especially when you're involving, by the way, not just the 15 yards, but potentially fines, which
Correct.
is something that, we don't really talk about, but it's a big deal. Like for, a player at the end of the roster coming in, maybe like a later round draft pick, and he's a defensive back and he's trying to make a play, and oh my God, half of his paycheck, So I do think there's a lot of pressure. And again, I really hope that in execution, it isn't that dramatic.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Now, I did a little video with my wife and my sister-in-law about how the NFL wants defensive guys to tackle now. And basically the joke was not at all. They just want more points. They just want them to carry the offensive guys into the end zone. And I think the Logan Wilson play on Mark Andrews, although they're saying, at least as far as we know, that wasn't on the video that they showed at the NFL owners meetings, and it won't be flagged. Differentiating that from what an actual swivel hip drop tackle is going to be really difficult to assess. And also when you've got guys like Derrick Henry and Josh Allen running the football, running full steam ahead at 230 to 40 to 50 pounds, how are defenders supposed to now tackle guys and prevent them from getting first downs and prevent them from scoring touchdowns when they're putting this rule in that essentially is going to take that away?
Well, I don't think it's quite as common as maybe we fear. I've seen conflicting reports actually about how when the NFL went back to assess how common it was, first they said it was once a weekend. That's not a lot at all. Then it was once a game. And I was like, well, that's quite a bit. So there's a massive gap between those two things.
Right.
The Wilson obviously tackle and then, a couple times in the same game that was kind of the one that caught everybody's attention. But I was thinking back to there, I could think of a few plays where it was very obvious. And actually after the Wilson tackle, watching football through the rest of the season, I was kind of looking to see how often I noticed it.
Right.
I didn't find it to be overwhelmingly common, but it is a technique thing. And again, every time when the rules are changed, the way tackling is taught is changed. So we've seen this it's a cycle in the NFL. It happens all the time. The way, actually, I think probably during not long after you were drafted, I want to say 4 years later is when they started more calling defensive holding differently because of the way the Seahawks defense was playing.
Correct.
So it must have been and guys changed the way they played. The guys changed the way they were taught to play, defensive back. So I just think the same thing will happen.
No, I totally agree that the guys will adjust to the new rules changes and figure out a way to make it happen. We know that the NFL wants more points, and that points scored in games on average has gone down for the last 4 seasons. So it does feel like some of these rule changes are to help the offense just as much as it is to be about player safety. And the report that you were talking about with the frequency, I saw that, hey, this happened 230 times last year. So roughly once a game.
Yeah.
But that's when you add in pass interference and roughing the passer and all these different things. It's just giving the defense, in my opinion, more thoughts that go through their mind as they're going to tackle someone, to where a lot of defenders have complained to me after I put out what I said on Twitter and obviously what I said on First Take about it, that it's just making the game more of a thinking process for the defensive guy. And I think that makes it harder for them to keep themselves safe. I actually think this rule makes it unsafe for defenders in certain aspects.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think in that they said it was a 20-25% injury rate, which is obviously very unusually high
Correct.
but again, who knows, I don't know if the PA did their own research in response to that. So, you just don't know, right? But that's always the balance. I think, like when these rules are changed in the season, if it's like, back when it was a horse collar, if it was this hip drop, when it happens in the season, everyone's like, oh my God, like this guy's got hurt. They got to do something.
Right.
And then months go by and we kind of forget about it. And then they change the rule and we're upset about it.
Right.
And I think we question, okay, how much is it really going to prevent injuries? I don't know. I would contrast that, by the way, with like the other major rule change, the kickoff rule.
There you go.
Which will definitely reduce injuries. Like no question. It's not even a matter of debate. Now you can debate whether you like it or not. You and I can talk about that. I think it's kind of interesting. But that one to me was a very obvious solution to a situation where there were a disproportionate amount of head and neck injuries for years in football.
Yeah. So why do you think that the new rule will prevent more injuries the way that they set it up?
So for those who didn't get a chance to see it in practice during the XFL season, the way it works is like you're kicking off from the same spot, but then the opposing team's protection unit is lined up not too far from you. And then behind them, they call it the landing area. Guy catches the ball. And essentially because your two sides are not that far apart from each other, you reduce those like very terrifying collisions at high speed from guys at the end of the roster trying to make the team. Or the one that I always think about when Ricardo Lequette was hurt on the Seahawks. Devastating. So scary. So close to being paralyzed. So with this new rule change, it's almost like a higher speed running play. Right? Like we'll like they're going like coaches will call different types of returns and you might see guys pulling, you might see unique actions in the backfield. I find that kind of interesting. Do you think it's gonna be too weird? Like, what is your perception of that?
No, I think it's going to be phenomenal. I am all for the new kickoff rule change because I think it's going to, the way that they set it up, right? If you kick off and you kick it out of the back of the end zone, like a lot of teams have been doing over the past few seasons, the ball's coming to the 35-yard line. If you kick it out of bounds, the ball goes to the 40-yard line. But they're enticing teams to kick it in that landing zone and making the returners return it if they want the benefit of getting the ball out as far as they possibly can. Because if they don't return it, say it hits in the landing zone, rolls in the end zone, well, they're getting the ball at the 20. But there's a lot of nuances to the rule that I think people need to actually watch the video on so they can see what's going on. But to me, it screams, hey, we want this play back in football. We're going to entice you to return the football. And I think it's going to add a premium to the kickoff returners once again, where I feel like in the past few years, that position has been downgraded or devalued a little bit. Now it's going to go right back through the roof.
I think the other interesting thing is, aside from like the play calling aspect of it, which, special teams coaches are some of the most innovative guys around. I'm sure 100%. They'll be collaborating with the running backs coaches. Also the types of players who, like, I think maybe was it the Steelers who signed Cordero Patterson and right after the rule change, and everyone was like, oh, interesting, like, will we see the Dolphins use Devon Achane back there in an interesting way? I mean, imagine him with 10 yards and ahead of his team. I mean, it's just, I'm just curious. I think it could be really intriguing. And to your point, most importantly, it brings the play back, but in a safe way.
Yeah. And even guys like Keyshawn Nixon there with the Packers, the way I look at it is when I was I was a kickoff returner, Mina. Back in my heyday in junior high school and high school, I was a kickoff returner, right? Okay. So a lot of the issues with punt return versus kick return and all that is just the amount of space that guys have. And some guys are just better at reading out those holes from farther away. Well, now it just becomes a run play. Yeah. Like you said, they're going to be double teaming, potentially pulling, getting guys in front, try to create that swell through the middle of the return team. But they're so close now, it's almost equivalent to counter. Yeah, totally. So some of those guys that are used to running the football might actually get back there and play returner a little bit more because it's such a different game now, right? Because they're going to be so close. So I'm actually fascinated by that rule. Do you think there are any drawbacks to changing the rule?
You are losing some of those like amazing returns. And there's usually like 3 or 4 every season that are so memorable. and obviously some of the greatest returners throughout history. That potential wow, as infrequent as it is, there are incredibly memorable moments in football history. Right. But I think you might still see, like, if a guy, breaks a couple tackles, if the play is really well designed, he could still go. I think that happened in an XFL game, actually. I think there was one that was, referring for touchdown, and it was just as exciting. So I think we just have to see like one of those plays pop off early on to feel like, okay, the potential for that is still there.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name specifically. I think it was Freddie Brown. Okay. And he ran one back. And the difference between his run back and what we traditionally see in the NFL was it happened so fast.
Yes.
Like because they were all so close, he like made one move, had a lead blocker, and he was off to the races. And it was over. It was still exciting. It just won't be different. It's be different. Exactly. It'll just be a little bit different. RG3 and The Ones is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season and in the offseason. I'm having a blast, y'all. It's super simple. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry just like that. PrizePicks not only makes playing daily fantasy easy, it makes using responsible gaming look easy as well. You can set up alerts, limits, timeouts, and more in just a few clicks. The alerts let you know when you have placed a certain amount of entries, and there are limits that can cap the number of deposits you can make during a period of time. It's so simple, you guys. So simple. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and a huge selection of player and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Daily fantasy sports is made easy with PrizePicks. Learn more at prizepicks.com/responsible gaming or directly in PrizePicks' first-in-class member support help system. Again, learn more at prizepicks.com/responsible gaming or directly in PrizePicks' first-in-class member support help center. Speaking of different, free agency this offseason. Was there anything, what was the most shocking free agency move to you?
I think nothing terribly surprising. No, like there were no contracts where I was like, what? Like, what are they doing? Really? I mean, I guess maybe Robert Hunt getting $100 million from the Panthers, a guard. He's a good guard, but that the way they approached it generally made sense in the context of like, oh, they're really doing whatever it takes to evaluate Bryce Young. Let's give him that interior protection, see what we've got in him. We're going to overpay a little bit because we're the Carolina Panthers. Let's be real, right? So that one was a little bit surprising. I guess, one thing, I was just talking to someone about this, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. That kind of surprised me a little bit was the Titans, the 2 moves they made. One, trading for L'Jarius Sneed, which I thought was great. And then he's fantastic player, not even a huge contract. And then paying Calvin Ridley a ton of money. They kind of were the dark horse team. So that was surprising to me because I think I just didn't view the Titans as being a team that saw themselves as a contender, right? Okay. That surprised me. But then the other thing that surprised me, and this is what I wanted to ask you about, Ridley got a pretty sizable contract, right?
Yes, he did.
And I keep waiting, like I was just talking to someone about this. You see so many rookie receivers coming in and they're so good immediately. Right. And look, the Justin Jeffersons of the world are going to make $30 million and everyone understands that, whatever. But I keep waiting like, okay, our team's going to stop paying that second tier receiver the way, the teams approach the running back position just because the hit rate in the draft has been so high. And as you know, we are about to enter maybe the greatest wide receiver draft of all time.
Yeah. I would say when you look at Calvin Ridley, it's every decision is team based and who you have at quarterback. So if you're the Titans and you got Will Levis and that's your guy, what's going to be better for him? Is it going to be the rookie who now they're learning together? Or is it going to be a veteran like Calvin Ridley who's probably just entering his prime, who knows how to play at the NFL level, who knows how to run routes, who knows how to get open, understands the schemes? I think it depends on who you have at quarterback. So with Will Levis there being a second-year guy, really trying to rally the troops and give it a go and prove that he can be the long-term solution for the Titans, I understand the move with Calvin Ridley. Where if it's a veteran QB, go to the draft. These dudes coming out are unbelievable. Maybe those veteran guys don't need that veteran at wide receiver like we saw with Patrick Mahomes getting to a point where he no
Yeah.
longer needed Tyreek Hill. You know, those types of guys are special. No one else is Patrick Mahomes. But there's some other veterans out there that have done that. Brady's did it over the course of his career. That's kind of where I understand the payment there, whereas I wouldn't necessarily see it in a situation like the Chiefs.
That's why I'm so puzzled that the Patriots didn't invest at the position, because if they are taking a quarterback at 3, that quarterback is walking into an extremely challenging situation.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And, they brought Hunter Henry back. They brought Kendrick Bourne back. Even he's coming off injury, and I'm a big Bourne fan. I think he's a great route runner.
He's a really good player, yeah.
He makes it very easy for the quarterback, and very undervalued player, I would say. But yes, if you're the quarterback going to the Patriots, they need to be built to run the football and play great defense with a defensive-minded head coach. So it's one of the least favorable places to go right now. And I think if they don't have the guy that they want at 3, I do think they'd probably trade out and just ride the wave with Jacoby Brissett. I wouldn't advise that. I would pick a quarterback if I was them, but it's not looking great. And I don't want them to be in a situation similar to like maybe the Bears with Justin Fields, where they don't have the rosters to support the quarterback, but yet they're banking on that guy being their guy.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I look at that and I'm very worried. And that's, I wish, to our discussion about Ridley, I know that they were in the running for Ridley. I remember seeing that reported.
Yep.
Pay up. Like, I don't understand, like, I like Bourne. But yeah, I love Bourne as like a 2 or 3, or, I don't know. I don't understand their approach to the offseason, given the fact that they're, probably taking quarterbacks. So.
Yeah, it would have definitely helped to have Mr. Ridley there for a young guy to grow with. Same thing the Titans did for Will Levis. But when you look at the things one of the bigger stories that's happened, it's the biggest story, it's taken over all the airwaves. You're talking about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, both ending up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. For you, when you look at that non-competition, who do you think ends up being the starter come week 1?
I was just on Around the Horn, and they were asking us about the Cowboys not paying Dak, and I said, I'm about to spend an entire offseason talking about Russell Wilson versus Justin Fields. You really want to be out there, Dallas? You want to be out there? You want to be you want that to be you next year? And I don't mean that disrespectfully to those quarterbacks. I actually think they were both amazing bargains for Pittsburgh. But the point is, it's very hard to find a quarterback when you're not at the top of the draft. You don't have one. Yep. I guess first and foremost, it has to be a competition. I know Tomlin's out here saying Russell's in pole position or whatever. There's zero reason why it shouldn't be a real competition. You remember Wilson, going back to, again, 2012, he entered the NFL with a real quarterback competition, and thank God they had one. And they paid Matt Flynn that year more than Russell's making now, 10 times more in Pittsburgh. I think for Fields, like you, I'm a huge fan of his game, and I think he's shown a lot of flashes that would still be interesting to me.
Right.
As a team, I think his ceiling is higher than Russ at this point. Russ's floor is probably higher. The two things I want to see is coming in this summer, preseason, whatnot. Does it look like you can play faster?
Right.
In a way that you can cut down on the time to throw on the sacks a little. And then do you, as an organization, with Arthur Smith as your offensive coordinator, are you willing to fully embrace his mobility? Because if not, don't even bother having a competition. Don't even bother having him run the offense.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I think the competition aspect, I think Mike Tomlin, what he did is genius. He knows that a guy like Russell can set the tone. He's won a Super Bowl there in Seattle. He understands a system where you run the football, you play great defense, you don't turn the ball over. He's mastered that, and he made magical plays in his run with the Seahawks, which I know you're very familiar with because that's your team. But with Justin Fields, it's more of, I have to come in with the mindset of, the market wasn't big for me, so how can I win here in Pittsburgh? And I do think your point is a very solid one. If they go in there, they're going to be competing regardless. Like, it's just our nature as quarterbacks. But Russ, of anybody, knows it's always an open competition. He absolutely has to know that he has to go out there. His career's on the line. Yes, he's got to throw his arm around the young guy, but he's got to show them that he can make the throws better, he can make the reads better, he can play faster, and he still has a little bit of mobility left, which I do think he showed last season to some extent.
Agree. He definitely lost weight, and it showed last year. I mean, he doesn't have Justin Fields mobility, but
he does not.
I thought that was one of the most impressive aspects of his season last year.
Yeah, no doubt. So that brings me to something that a lot of people have a disagreement on, is whether or not right now, if Russ retired, is he a Hall of Famer? I think he is. What do you think?
I think he has a really strong case. If you look at the quarterbacks who are in, his resume does compare very favorably to a lot of guys. It's not a sure thing. And he undeniably, when you're looking at like volume stats, he benefits from the era that he played in. That's going to be the case for all of these quarterbacks.
Right.
But however, beyond like Pro Bowls, I don't know if he's ever actually been an All-Pro, but he's never been MVP or anything like that.
Right.
He ranks near the top of the NFL, not just in volume stats, but a few rate stats as well. That to me make it hard to keep him out, because if you do keep him out, there's a lot of guys who are in there who are less qualified.
Oh yeah. I got nothing else to add to that. I think you are 100% correct. I think he's a Hall of Famer. All of his stats say it. It's not just that he won the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl certainly helps. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just think there's a little bit of negativity from the past 2 seasons that have made people forget about just how great of a start to the career that he had over his first 9 seasons. So when you talked about the whole Dak situation, what's your feelings on what Jerry Jones is doing with Dak Prescott? As far as right now, it seems like they're not going to give him a new contract. What do you think about that?
I don't think they could have handled. I mean, they have not handled it well. Has been the case with a lot of things over the last few years with Dallas, but we just saw Kirk Cousins, who is turning 36 years old this year and coming off of a torn Achilles, get 4 years and $180 million from the Atlanta Falcons. You don't think Dak Prescott, who was a top 3 quarterback by just about every metric last year, is going to get significantly more in free agency? And honestly, by the way, credit to Dak the same way to Kirk. Those two, both legends at the bank, both, later round draft picks who played things perfectly. So from Dak's perspective, it's amazing. From Dallas's perspective, I hear there's anytime you try to make this case, there are people at home screaming, "Do it in the playoffs!" And how can you? And I get that, I understand. But my question for them, and Robert, for you, I don't know how you feel, but what then? Who's going to play quarterback?
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to upgrade?
That is my biggest issue with the whole Dak situation. Jerry Jones said he was going to be all in, right, in 2024. And we all thought, they're going to go after it in free agency. They're going to go after it in the draft. And really what he was saying was, hey, Dak, this is your last chance.
Different version of all in,
And why I don't understand that is because who do you have to replace him?
Yeah.
Unless he's waiting on maybe somebody, sorry, Christmas tree, but he's waiting on someone like Shadur Sanders. I don't know. Is he planning for the next year's draft, or is he trying to say, I don't believe that Dak can win it if he can't win it this year with the team that we're going to put him on? Or is him and Mike McCarthy married together? I'm really not sure, but I do know this. You said this a little bit ago. We're going to spend the entire offseason talking about this now.
That's gonna be
it's just more of a distraction. And I had this conversation with Ryan Clark and Marcus Spears and Scott Van Pelt on Monday Night Countdown of who do the Cowboys need at coach? What do they need to do? And the guys kept saying they don't need more distractions. Well, now we've got another distraction.
Yeah.
And it's really just going to be about whether Dak should get paid, or what does it mean if they don't win, or what if they win 12 games again? And I'll say this about the Kirk Cousins thing. Kirk Cousins was playing the best football of his career last year before he got hurt.
Agree.
Guys like Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott keep coaches with a job because they're so good, and they're good enough to give you that hope that we can win it all.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to put up great stats, and they're going to put up great numbers. But when you get into the playoffs, to me, it's not that they shrink. It's the rest of the team has to continue to raise up.
Yeah.
Not very many guys like Patrick Mahomes.
I was going to say,
quarterbacks don't win games in the Super Bowls, in the playoffs. It's a team.
To that point, though, like, it's contradictory, right? Because you're saying, Dak Prescott, we're all in. This is it. He needs to prove himself. But we're going to make it harder for him because we're not going to upgrade our team. 2 offensive linemen are leaving. We are, one of our receivers is we're just counting on these other guys to come up. Our lead running back at the moment is Rico Dowd. Like, I don't understand the logic there. Like, if you really are like, okay, show us Dak, show us this year, earn that contract, and then we'll give you $1 zillion, then why not optimize the situation around him so that you can actually see if I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, you mean do what like my guy, Will Sasso over there with the Jets is doing? By the way, I called Joe Douglas Will Sasso because he literally looks like the comedian Will Sasso. The Jets have loaded up and they're going for it with Aaron Rodgers. Now, whether you agree with that or not, you can't look at their roster and say they don't have a chance.
No.
Right now with the Cowboys, it doesn't really feel like they have the roster to go win a Super Bowl. And they're debating whether to pay these 3 guys, whether it's Dak, CD, or Micah. I just think they have to decide, are these the 3 pillars that we want to build our future on? I think they should. Nip it in the bud and just go for it. But apparently they've got their reservations.
We'll see.
Yeah. You did something recently that I thought was fire, by the way. Honestly, I've been thinking about doing it, and I've actually had it in the works with some other position groups. But you compared different receivers to the X-Men, or different players in the draft, should I say, to the X-Men. I'm a
Are you an X-Men guy?
I'm an X-Men guy. I got them back here. Funko Pops back here.
Let's go.
I actually like one of the X-Men that a lot of people talk about, Bishop.
Oh, yeah.
Representation matters.
Yeah.
Black guy. It is what it is. But I love anime. I love cartoon characters. For you, who was it that you compared Drake Maye and JJ McCarthy to? Okay,
so first of all, Bishop, for the people who grew up on the animated series like I did, massively important person in the the whole time travel series. There's like he's very pivotal and significant. So here I did 5 comps.
Okay,
I gave Jaden Daniels Gambit because Louisiana launches bombs. I gave Rogue Dallas Turner because when she gets her hands on you, she takes your powers. You don't want to be lined up from her,
There you go.
I made Wolverine Blake Corum because he's a Wolverine and he regenerated, came back from the injury.
Yep.
I made Malik Neighbors Storm because he can fly and he looks like lightning out there. He certainly did at the Pro Bowl today.
Yes.
And then I gave Caleb Williams Jean Grey because it looks like he has telekinetic powers. And he also has he's like a little too powerful for his own good sometimes. And he needs to play in structure. He's like a little Dark Phoenix in him. So to answer your question, though, you asked about Drake Maye and JJ McCarthy. Mm-hmm. So I didn't pick anyone for Cyclops. And I put out there as a question, who should be Cyclops? And some people said Drake Maye because lasers. And then some people said JJ McCarthy because he has that dorky Boy Scout energy.
Okay,
so
that's good.
I didn't say it. I'm just saying, but that was thrown out there as a comp for Drake or for JJ.
No, those are great comps. Like,
thank you.
I'm fascinated with connecting different players to different anime characters or superheroes, just because that's our generation and we like to have fun with that.
Yeah.
But who do you have in the quarterback comparison between Drake Maye and JJ McCarthy? If you had to pick your fighter, which one are you going to battle?
Oh, man. Drake Maye for me.
Okay.
And I like the last few days, the JJ McCarthy hype has been pretty wild.
It's been up there.
Yeah. We've got people put him in not because I was already like, wow, top 5. Damn. Okay. Like coming off. It just took me by surprise. And then now in the last few days, you have some people putting him even higher.
Yes.
Maybe, I've been wrong before. I was wrong about Josh Allen. I own that fully. A lot of people were. But to me, Drake Maye, you see the out of structure playmaking ability, the arm talent, the tools. McCarthy, he's accurate, he's tough, he's athletic, but I don't really see those kinds of plays on tape the same way personally. So I guess I would be shocked if he was taking over him. But listen, I've been wrong before and been surprised by the NFL before. I don't know. How do you view it?
Oh, Mina, it's a very tough one because obviously I'm close to all of these guys, but I never let that get in the way of the analysis.
Okay.
But what I will say about JJ is I think you take Drake Maye as the guy that you can develop. He's got the height, the size, the athleticism, the arm strength. But I do believe that JJ McCarthy has the same things. And some people are saying right now that JJ is overrated with all the hype that's been going on. I actually think he's underrated. And the reason I say that is he was not asked to do what the rest of the guys in his draft class were asked to do. Yeah. I know that JJ coming in to Michigan was a runner, right? His athleticism was everything. And because he didn't show that on tape, because he wasn't asked to be a runner a lot, now people are thinking that he only has functional athleticism. Like, the guy's a great athlete. And he wasn't asked to throw the football around 35 times a game like Caleb Williams was, or Michael Penix Jr. He wasn't asked to run around the field and rush for 1,000 yards like Jaden Daniels. But he was consistently making the right decisions. And people get mad. They're like, oh, well, anybody can make the right decisions. It's like, well, you're not 27-1 as a starter for no reason. And you don't win a national championship for no reason. And I actually believe that JJ is going to benefit in the draft from the ego of GMs and personnel guys, because they're going to say, he's got potential. I know he's got the potential. He wasn't asked to do these different things, but he can do them. 3rd and 7. Yeah. He was the number one quarterback in the country when you had to throw the football in college football with, I believe, like a 97.56, quarterback rating. So he's proven that he can make those throws in big moments and when he has to. But if he becomes successful, then I get the credit. And I don't think people really understand that part of the dynamic in the NFL. Caleb Williams, if you mess him up, it's your fault.
It's on you. Yeah.
JJ McCarthy, if you get him to become whatever and be a franchise QB, they get the credit. Everybody gets raises. Now the underlings are now GMs at other places. That's what I think they're coming from.
Did you watch Love is Blind at all?
I did watch Love is Blind. I love Love is Blind.
When AD on this season said, I'm such a fix-a-hoe?
Yes.
I was like, every NFL GM is like her. Like, they're all just a bunch of fix-a-hoes.
They're a bunch of fix-a-hoes. That's actually pretty good. That's a great analogy.
I'm just saying, the way she was looking at Clay, they're looking at these quarterbacks who don't have a lot of reps. I will say this though, and one thing about JJ too that I think is it kind of connects to the Kirk Cousins discussion. Mm-hmm. Big part of the reason why Kirk Cousins has had the career he's had and has been appealing to a lot of people around the NFL is his style of play does align with that Shanahan tree of coaches that 100%. Has proliferated. So I'm telling you, somebody told me, they're like, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, who's from that lineage, he likes JJ McCarthy. And I was like, I bet he does.
That makes sense.
I bet he does. So if half of the NFL is now from this same tree, they're going to like that type of guy. They like Kirk Cousins. They like 100%. It. There's a lot of similarities. And I say that complimentary, like his ability to throw over the middle of the field, lead receivers, get yards after catch, accuracy. So, I'm ready for it. He'll be drafted high.
Yeah, there's no hate in this conversation. Like, I clearly understand that. I saw it firsthand when we were teammates there in Washington. There's just something appealing about a coach knowing, this is going to sound obvious, but knowing where the guy's going to throw the football, he's going to make the right decision, he's going to keep him safe. But now with JJ, he has more athleticism than a Kirk Cousins. So if you combine all that, they're like, all right, this really could be the guy. And you brought up Love is Blind. It's like the NFL GMs and front offices, they're not really picking these quarterbacks per se because of the actual results or the actual talent right now. They're more so picking them because of the potential. Yeah. Right? And that's exactly what, women do towards men sometimes. They pick us because of the potential, not necessarily because of what we're showing them. But, shout out to all the ladies out there, saving men out there,
Now we got to say, who's the Chelsea comparing herself to Megan Fox? That's going to be like if somebody comes out and compares like JJ McCarthy to Tom Brady or something.
Yo, that's actually pretty good. I will just put it this way. I couldn't believe she said that. And, we'll go from there. She definitely was not negative.
Google it.
But that brings me to, really honestly, my last two conversation points here with you would be, there was it's got created a little bit of fuss, Mina, a little bit of a fuss. I was just going through my analysis. I'm breaking things down.
Oh no, what'd you do?
I'm like, you know what? I this is what I believe. I know I'm going to get heat for it, but I gotta say it. And it was the whole conversation about Caleb Williams pulling an Eli.
Oh,
and not going to Chicago and telling him that he's not going to play there. And I got a lot of blowback. A lot of people were upset. Even GM Ryan Poles comes out and says it pissed him off. And
really,
my answer to that was like, good.
I'm
glad it pissed you off. Take care of these guys. But do you think that the Chicago Bears are the best placed for Caleb Williams at the number 1 pick?
Yes, I do. But, Robert, why not apply that take to the Patriots?
Yeah.
Let's revisit it. Think about it. You and I had a conversation earlier about how bad that situation is. Like, let's say, I don't know, Drake Maye or Jane Daniels going 3.
Yep.
That is the team where I'd be like, ooh, I'm nervous. Trade me to the Vikings, y'all. Like,
no, I understand it. And I didn't mention the Patriots in my conversation about where I think Caleb should go. I mentioned the Washington Commanders. Yeah. But
new era,
new regime, new owner, new GM, new head coach, offensive coordinator that's worked with him before, understands his personality, understand what he needs to be. Chicago, of course, you make the case for Chicago. Why is Chicago the best place for him?
I really like everything they've done on offense. I think the offensive line isn't perfect, but they're vastly improved from the beginning of Justin Fields' career. Really good running back room. It's not just they bring in Swift, but I think Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson are such an underrated duo. Tight end position is squared away with Kmet and Everett, and then receivers now. I thought DJ Moore was amazing last year.
Yes.
You bring in Keenan Allen. I loved that signing just because it's kind of like we were talking about when you explained why you felt the Titans maybe overpaid for Ridley. And I agree. I think it's a really good point. Allen, to me, he's like a quarterback's best friend type of receiver.
Okay.
And for Caleb in particular, so much about season 1 is going to be just getting him to play in structure on time. That kind of receiver, man, to pair him with, and then he pairs really nicely with Moore. So I just look at the surroundings. I think Waldron's a good offense coordinator too. They bring over from Seattle. And I just think it's like a really good situation coupled with a defense that's been improving. I would feel really good about that if I was Caleb. I would feel probably of the top 3, certainly the best.
Okay. So, I agree with 99% of what you just said. I really do. And I know sometimes in this business, people pick a team to pick on and they become the villain for that team. Well, that's not who I am. And so I agree with 99% of that. My issue is the coaching staff and what they did with Mitchell Trubisky and what they did with Justin Fields. Ryan Poles comes out and says they want to break the cycle, but to break the cycle, you got to actually make decisions to break the cycle. And they're repeating the cycle right now of bringing in a new quarterback with a coach that's on a lame duck contract and then seeing how it goes. And my issue with that is if Eberflus is your guy, extend him.
I see. Interesting. Yeah.
Extend him. Let it be known he's got the extension. I know that they don't traditionally do that, but otherwise I won't be able to take back anything that I've said because it's not a great situation foundationally.
Yeah.
When you have a coach who's fighting for his life and a new offensive staff. If they don't win next year, there's a chance that Eberflus gets fired. And now Caleb's on his second coach and second coordinator in 2 years. That's never a good thing. And people got on me about, all the players, and I get that. But what about the 2019 Browns? They had Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., and they won 6 games because they had Freddie Kitchens at head coach. So that to me is more so my issue with it. It's not the players. The players are great. It's, hey, you want to break the cycle? Don't bring a quarterback in here with a coach who's on a lame duck contract.
I think if I had one concern about the Bears, to me, it's not so much the lame duck contract, but he is a defensive coach.
Yep.
If Caleb Williams balls out year one, Shane Waldron's going to probably be a head coaching candidate. Yeah. And this is why with like Houston, I feel like they were so lucky that he's coming back.
Right.
So I think that is, you do kind of hope. And this is why I was surprised with Washington going with Quinn, for example. I mean, he's a great coach, but there is such a benefit to having that young quarterback and the head coach on the same timeline and on the same side of the football.
Yes.
So that would be a little bit of if I had one bit of hesitation, I think that would be a little bit concerning, but but the players are really good. So I still feel really good about it.
Phenomenal. And I've tried to make sure that's to be said every single time. This ain't about the players, guys. This is more about, there's more organizations in the NFL that mess up quarterbacks than actually help develop them. And I can't remember the last quarterback that actually succeeded in spite of an organization that didn't support them in the right way. So when we're having those conversations, understand, Bears fans, it's not about that. I want you guys to break the cycle too. Just extend Eberflus. I'm not his agent, but extend him. Before I let you go, we've had a really great conversation. And you didn't have to do this. I appreciate you doing this. It's been phenomenal. I've enjoyed podcasting with you, and I've seen just the way that you took your career from not being involved in football to now being one of the leaders at ESPN and how we break things down. And it's been a pleasure to be your teammate through this process. And I wanted to be able to tell you that.
Thank you.
Because I haven't been able to tell you that before. But there's also a lot of people who don't like that fact. and I know that you've experienced that on social media, which I think the way you handle the trolls is hilarious.
Oh, thanks.
By just, taking the offensive, right? But what do you say to the people out there who have constantly attacked you and said that if you never played this sport, you shouldn't be able to break it down? What is your response to those people?
I think there's certainly great precedent in NFL coaching staffs and college coaching staffs where you have guys who are involved in the sport at the highest level despite not having played it. So I'd say that, not that I'm comparing myself to them, but I also kind of know my role here. I mean, part of the reason I'm able to do what I do is because I get to work with a lot of guys who did play the game at the highest level, and they bring things to the table that I'll never be able to. So I feel like I'm kind of like the drummer in the band, doing my thing, looking at the game a different way, studying different things, but to do what I do, I have to be paired with all of y'all. So I don't know if that's the right way to answer the question, but that's truly how I feel. Like I just feel like I get to be part of the conversation. It's not just me, and I think that's why it works.
No, of course it involves having good teammates that understand, the value that someone can bring, and I agree with you. I think there has been precedent set that you don't have to play the game to be able to talk about the game and break it down. How does it make you feel do you feel like some people don't value that opinion because of that aspect? Or how would you describe that? I think
there are people who don't value all of us for different reasons. I mean, like, I get called DEI every day, but like, so you probably see the same shit in your mentions. Like we all and then, like somebody says you didn't play. I've seen my teammates on air like criticized because you played, but you weren't a Pro Bowler, you weren't a star, or maybe a guy is a star, but he was, the people who are searching for reasons to discount us are usually looking for reasons to discount everybody.
That's true.
Like I've said, I don't see my mentions that often, but when I do look, sometimes I actually find it really helpful to click on the person, because if you look at their timeline, it's just shit spewing at everyone. Right. And I think it's important to remember it's almost never about us or anyone personally. It's just entirely about the other person.
No doubt about it. I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's something that you've dealt with, and I'm here, standing 10 toes down with you.
I appreciate
it. You do a great job at your job. I think ESPN sees that value, and and hopefully we'll be able to continue to work together for years to come. I appreciate you coming on the show and having this great conversation. It was very, very insightful, and I think the people listening will learn a thing or two, and that's always the goal.
Thank you for having me on. I'll have to have you on the Mina Kimes show sometime.
There we go. All right, guys, that was a great conversation with Mina, but let's get into some of these fan questions. Break Ankles Daily, has there ever been anyone famous in the crowd that gave you extra motivation? Yes, there was. For me, I've never been one to idolize anyone except for God. But for my famous people in the crowd or famous person in the crowd that gave me extra motivation, it was definitely my wife and kids. My wife, Grete, our daughters, Reese, Gloria, Gamay, and Gia. They're all the motivation that I need. As a girl dad of 4, I always wanted to be able to go out and put on a show for them, obviously be out there and take care of my job as a great teammate for the guys out there that I go to battle with. But they always are the reason that I wake up every morning. They're the reason that I do 4 a.m. workouts, and they're the reason that I spent the extra time in the film room because I wanted to make them proud. And I never lost sight of that. There was never any other person in the stands that could make me want to play harder than the family that I support. But this week, I also had a question for you guys on Twitter. Is Stefon Diggs essential to Josh Allen's success with the Buffalo Bills? I think he is. I think unequivocally, Stefon Diggs is the biggest key for the Buffalo Bills going into this season. As long as the Buffalo Bills have Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen on the same team, I believe their Super Bowl window is wide open. And here's the reason why. We've seen Josh Allen with and without Stefon Diggs. And just in his first year with Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs helped him raise his completion percentage by 11%. He helped him throw 17 more touchdowns. And when it came to yards, he threw for 1,455 more passing yards in just the very first year that Stefon Diggs showed up. But oh wait, there's more. Since Diggs has been there, Josh Allen has not thrown for less than 4,283 yards. He hasn't thrown for fewer than 29 touchdowns. That's unbelievable. So when I look at Josh Allen and I look at the relationship that he has with Stefon Diggs on the football field, it is clear that Stefon Diggs is the peanut butter to his jelly. He's the brown sugar to his oatmeal. And the only way that we're going to find out if Josh Allen doesn't need Stefon Diggs is if he leaves. I don't want to see that happen. I know that Josh Allen would then have an opportunity to prove that he doesn't need Diggs, just like Patrick Mahomes proved he didn't need Tyreek Hill. But we aren't at that moment yet. And for whatever reason, there seems to be something off between Diggs and the organization. I hope that him and Josh Allen can pull it back together, because together, those guys are dynamite. And I don't want to see the championship window for the Buffalo Bills close because they gave up on a talent like Stefon Diggs. Well, that's a wrap for episode 28 of RG3 and The Ones. I want to give a huge shout out to Mina Kimes, the one and only Mina Kimes, for coming on the show, dropping some knowledge, having a great conversation. Hopefully you took one thing from the conversation that you can apply to your own life or your football knowledge that'll make you the one in that bad boy as well. Gotta say it, everybody. RG3 and The Ones is a Wave Sports and Entertainment original presented by PrizePicks, and it would not be made possible without my producer, all my producers, but especially our producer, Joanna, our social media extraordinaire, Andrew, and our editor, the one and only Brady. We appreciate you. I honestly can't do this without you guys, and you put up with me every single week, so that's a task in itself. But make sure you guys like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Be prepared to find us wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on social media at RG3 and The Ones. We're going to have those new episodes dropping every single Thursday. And you guys know, I like to leave you with something before we go. So just understand that it's always the right time to give God all the praise and all the glory. Whether you're at the top of the world or you're in a valley experience, He helped you get up there, and He'll certainly help you get out of the muck. So make sure you give Him that praise no matter what's going on in your life. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.